Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of HR Famous. I'm your host, Tim Sackett, and we're going to do something a little bit different today because I have a special guest coming in. For those who that are a reader of the Tim Sackett Project, you know that I love to review recruiting technology. I love to write about it, talk about it. And so we're gonna do one of those today on the podcast. And it's a product that my team has been using for about 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. And I'm going to bring on their founder, Joss Leufrancois. I'm almost got that correctly, Josh.
You did.
But Josh is coming out of Austin, Texas, but clearly he was born in France, and speaks French, but also speaks really good English. So Josh, before you started Visage, you were in the recruiting game in the global kind of context. Talk to me about what made you decide to start Visage, and then we'll tell the audience about the product and kind of do some industry trends. But how did you get started? How did you get started with it?
Well, pretty much like a lot of us in this recruitment space, it's a little bit by chance, I would say. A friend of mine was starting a recruitment agency that was back in London in 2005. And he asked me if I wanted to join him right after university. And he pitched that very, it was an easy thing to do. We would just phone up some companies, ask them if they needed anybody, find candidates, and make tons of money. That was the pitch.
Yeah.
It ended up not being that straightforward. But, a force of perseverance. A few months later, a friend of mine who was working for Total, an energy company, gave me a rec that was a reservoir engineer to work in Indonesia. And I went on, I believe, RigZone, which was kind of a job board at the time, to find a few candidates. We placed the candidate, and I will always remember, we made $52,000. I was 22 years old. That was the best day of my life. And here I was, doing. And fast forward 10 years later, when I exited this recruitment agency, we were in 12 countries, doing about $50 million revenue, placing thousands of candidates every year. And I really wanted, one of my pet peeves, the one thing I wanted to solve was the fact that my recruiters, 75 of them back then, would spend their life on job boards, on LinkedIn, doing very manual things. You know the issue. And I've always been, my preference has always been to go for passive candidate sourcing. Go after these candidates who are not looking for a job, the 75% plus of the market. And that's something that's very hard to scale. That's something that unless you throw, a lot of hours at the issue, automation, AI at the time was not performing at the level we wanted to. So I thought, let's look at this issue. Let's try to solve it. And this is how I came to.
Yeah, and I think the other issue with having our recruiters really be good at sourcing is that it's a constant evolution of what's going on, right? If you're not on top of it and you're not training it, literally on a monthly basis, your recruiters fall behind unless they want to self-educate, right? And we know like the top 100, 200 sourcers in the world, they're just nerds for this, right? They love to go out, teach themselves. They're constantly interacting with each other. But those are the rare 1%ers, right? Everybody else, they just tend to fall behind. So I'll let you go ahead and continue with the Visage story.
That's true. And I think a general trend over the past many years is to have 360 recruiters, people who are not really specialized at anything. And we used to see in a lot of companies like the sourcing group or people specializing in sourcing, but it doesn't really happen that much anymore. So we're asking our recruiters to do sourcing, to have this, to be specialists at identifying potential candidates, to find their email address, be very fast, and but that didn't have not necessarily trained for that. Especially lately, there is a new breed of recruiters entering the market because there are so many recruiters roles advertised. I think that I looked on LinkedIn and you actually have more jobs open for recruiters than software engineers, which is mind blowing if you think about where we were a year or so ago. Just,
Yeah.
just going back on the so many more recruiters entering the trade without specialized training in sourcing. So we got to bring them some really good products so they can be efficient. And that's what we are all about at Visage. We focus on passive candidate sourcing. And what's unique about us is that we don't believe AI is going to solve everything. There is just
Hmm.
too much ambiguity in the way a resume is written by a human, a way a job description is written. You need experts to be able to navigate the nuance, the ambiguity. And that's what we've done. We combine both artificial intelligence to help us do, the first degree match between a
Yep.
candidate and a job description. And then human experts, people who specialize in software sourcing, sales sourcing, that are going to refine and ensure that, when you see a batch of candidates, you want to approve, you want to contact most of them.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I loved when I first saw it, and I call it like a human in the loop, right? So it's
yeah.
technology that doesn't forget that, hey, you know what, humans can still do some pretty cool stuff, and selection happens to be one of those. And so it's one of the things that I really loved about Visage, because I think with so many sourcing products, it's what it really is like they're like it's kind of an evolution of that job board, right? It's like, oh, here, we'll give you access to 350 million candidates,
Mhm.
and then you go in as a recruiter and try to, find the needle in the haystack. And what you guys did was to say, hey, you give us the rec, you give us the job description, we're going to use some AI technology, but we're also going to use expert sourcers, and we're going to deliver you back this list of, sourced candidates that we found for you. So now as a
Mhm.
recruiter, I can just focus on the list, right? I can just go and start like really kind of hammering, to try to figure out if those people are right for us. But then there's this kind of give and take back and forth between the
Yeah.
recruiter and the sourcer specialist to kind of continue to get better and better and better. And I think
Right.
that's one of the things that we loved about it, was that I wasn't going, because here's what I usually do to my recruiters, right? I say, oh, by the way, here's this new piece of technology, go use it. And they're like, yeah, it's good, but like it just forced me to do more work.
Right.
Where Visage was like, holy crap, I gave them the rec, and then I got really good candidates.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to do more work, right?
Yeah. And what's funny, looking at, I'm glad that you mentioned that when we look at the usage and behaviors, a lot of the jobs are posted on Friday afternoon. So the recruiters are posting all their recs on Friday, and then they come back to the office on Monday. They've got, a list of potential candidates for all their jobs. They sift through them, one click to contact, and start a very, elaborated marketing campaign using
Yeah.
emails so as to get responses. So yeah, I mean, in the world where I see a lot of our clients, recruiters used to have, the odd 15 to 25 recs at any one time. And now with what's happening in the world, they have 50 or 60. They simply don't have the
Yeah.
time to be proactive on those recs.
Yeah. No, I tell people all the time, like, I'll put my recruiters up against anybody, right? I think we do a great
Mhm.
job of training and continuous training. And I think my recruiters are really good at sourcing. But like when the pandemic started to kind of wane in the US and we saw this gigantic kind of influx of open requisitions coming, we just didn't have the capacity. And we didn't have the
Yeah.
capacity to add new recruiters and train them. And so having, Visage and being able to use Visage was like a really, really good thing for us. Now, one of the things I love to share, because for us it was a use case, right? Hey, we put in this much money to
Mhm.
use Visage in the sourcing, and then this is how much we got back out. And for us, it was a 6-to-1 return on investment. For every dollar we put into Visage, we
Wow.
got a
Mhm.
$6 return. Now, and
Right.
again, I thought that, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty good, right? Because you and I both grew up in the staffing agency world. It was never going to be a 1-to-1, right? If I use something and I put $10,000 into it, and I only felt like I got 10,000 in value back, in the recruiting world, in the agency world, that was not a good ROI. In corporate America, maybe that people would still do that. They're like, hey, I put
Right.
in 10,000, I got 10,000 in value. That's pretty good. For me, it was $1 and I get $6 in return. That's really good, especially since we felt like my team, when we really kind of dug in, we felt like we didn't really understand how to utilize Visage well until we got probably half or 3/4 into our spend, right? Because it was passive candidates, and we get this list. And what I had was my recruiters instantly throwing these passive candidates into a nurture campaign, which like they already knew who we were and what we were about, and they weren't getting like high response rates. And then when they started taking every single sourced candidate and treating them like an individual, right, and really getting specific with them, all of a sudden the response rates were huge, and we started to place more of those candidates. And so for us, it was, and again, we knew this, but it was also that learning of, hey, passive candidates need a different level of communication and personalization. And once we started that, it became really, really kind of a high. So we really feel like that ROI was probably 1 to 10, maybe 1 to 15. And we missed out on it because we weren't good at the personalization aspect. Yeah.
That's very interesting what you're mentioning. First, the ROI statement. And I always felt if we can make this work for staffing companies, which is not our main segment, by the way, our main segment is enterprise, because you are fairly price sensitive. You work in competition with other staffing companies, so the odds are not very favorable. But I'm glad to hear that you achieved the 6-to-1. I think the other thing that you mentioned is the passive candidate approach, and this is, I think, the beauty of the product is that we are going to take care of the initial, sourcing, discovery, and so on, present them to you, so you can really focus on crafting those messages and make them, suited to your audience, and that's something that's hard for a lot of the employers right now, especially the ones that have, relied on inbound traditionally, and they never had issues and never had to be proactive. When they find themselves, with piles of resumes that are not suitable, that are coming inbound, when they find that the right candidates are not applying and they have not trained their recruiters, it's kind of a lot of education for us to tell them, no, you can't just contact a candidate and send them on your 17 steps application flow. Because they are not, you need to, tell about you nurture them before.
The pace of change in the world of business is fast, and that drives incredible complexity for the world of human resources.
Welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast, a series of conversations with experts inside and outside the world of HR on how to innovate, measure, and evolve our practices.
Our goal is to help provide you with practical examples of how HR has to change to meet the complexity of the business environment.
Every week, we'll talk to new and different voices on all aspects of HR.
And at times, we'll get irreverent.
Silly even.
And sometimes geek out on the data and technology that underlie the processes that drive the world of HR.
But the conversations are always insightful and fun. So please, enjoy the HR Data Labs podcast.
Yeah, and I think that's why, I talk with a lot of corporate TA leaders that are like, well, hey, we want to source more. But then they don't understand that their entire process is not really built around passive candidates. It's built around active candidates who are applying. And
it doesn't tracking system, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just the entire process is built around a job posting, somebody applying that's already interested, and then your recruiters are having this interaction with them, right? And when you start to work with passive candidates, it becomes a completely different level of communication and interaction that has to take place. And like you said, you can't force them down your 10-step process, 15, whatever it might be, and expect that they're going to react well. They're just going to say, hey, wait a minute, I didn't ask for this. I'm out of here. But if you actually do some personalization, you actually sell them on the company, sell them on the job, talk them into coming to work for you, then they probably would be willing, right, to jump through your hoops and do some of the stuff that you want them to do. Right. And I think that's what is so valuable about the product. Now, again, this isn't supposed to be a big commercial. I really wanted to do the review and share people our experience and stuff like that. But also because you guys are doing so much work in the sourcing side, was really talk about some of the trends that you're seeing, especially right now. When we know, I mean, you're in Austin, Texas, I'm up in Michigan. Every single industry, every single organization, every single company in every marketplace right now seems like they're hiring from $12 an hour to $120 an hour. It doesn't matter. Everybody has openings. Why do you think, what are these primary reasons that we have such like this gigantic influx of jobs right now? What are you guys seeing from all of this?
Yeah, that's very interesting. We've been watching and we look at our inventory, hundreds of thousands of jobs, and I I thought we will peak in May for some reason,
Yeah.
because that was when the economies around the world were reopening, and June was higher, and we expect that July, even if it's a summer month, our Europe, despite the fact that we still have 30% of our business in Europe,
Yeah.
and it hasn't peaked, and I think there are two reasons why. When you read the news, it's like there's so much unemployment, people are not going back to work, and I think there are two things. One, companies have changed what they need, the requirements. If you think about, for instance, the retail, they don't necessarily need as many as many store managers, retail people, but they need people behind a computer helping with the site and sort of thing. So there has been a shift. And then there is always this, I think, asymmetry of information between what job seekers think or experience and what the companies are looking for. You look at these big brands that are supposed to be at the forefront of the talent acquisition space, and they still have very clunky systems where applying is difficult when you don't, if you're you are with your phone, you are Gen Z, and you want to apply, you want a better experience than that. So I think there is that's my analysis. Whether I don't know if it's going to stabilize anytime soon. I think this is going to be a very hard problem to solve for the next 18 to 24 months.
I agree. I totally agree with you. I talk to people and they're like, oh no, we think by the end of the year we'll stabilize. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. We had 2 million women in America leave the workforce during the pandemic. Many of those figured out like they don't want to come back, or they don't want to come back in the roles they had. We have like the baby boomer generation, the three biggest cohorts are retiring 2021, 2022, 2023. And people go, well, yeah, but we're not hiring old people. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand when those millions of people leave the workforce, everybody just gets ratcheted up, right? That person who was going to come out of university for an entry level job now has multiple like kind of jobs, maybe at one level up that they can choose from. And they don't have to take your $17 an hour job or $18 an hour job. They can choose one for $21 an hour or whatever that might be. And I just think that this is kind of an ongoing pattern that automation will eventually catch up and help us, right? And take care of some of this stuff. In a lot of industries, we'll see fast food companies totally go to like the kiosk and things of this sort, right? We know automation will take up a lot of these service level jobs, but the reality is we don't have enough workers coming into the workforce for the jobs that we have in the next 2 to 3 years, right? It's not going to be there.
Right. And I think the issue is that we are still really in the recruitment world, trying to do these lateral moves, having someone who tick the boxes. And if we don't think outside of the box and have candidates who are not necessarily meeting all the qualifications, skills, and experience, you're right, there's not enough people in the workforce. And I think, and the other issue we are having is attrition. I think in May, 4 million people resign. We don't have the number in June. I think Forbes had an article. They call it the Great Resignation. And so you have these companies that were already struggling to attract talent, and now they are faced with like waves of resignation, mostly because they are still playing the go back to the office game at some point when surveys demonstrate that most workers want to keep this flexible type of home work from home kind of setting.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting. I don't necessarily think it's a great resignation as much. It's almost like a great shuffle, right? Like we're shuffling people to newer jobs for jobs that we think are going to go away. Or like you said, people want to be treated like adults. They want flexibility. I don't necessarily think everybody wants to work remotely. I do, because I saw a survey recently, and it was like 2,000 plus new graduates that graduated university in 2021. 98% said they wanted to be in office, right? They want to have this experience. They want to be able to network with their peers. At the same time, if they have an appointment on a Friday morning and they have a 45-minute drive to work, hey, I'm just going to work from the office. I'm just going to work at home today, right? Because it makes sense. I don't have to waste an hour and a half of my day driving back and forth just to sit in a desk in an office when I can do that same thing. So to treat me like an adult, I think becomes the bigger issue that we're seeing. And once we get to that, I think people want to have this kind of, hey, I want to come in the office and I want to work with peers and I want to collaborate and I want to be creative. At the same time, I don't want to be a drone that has to drive into the office every single day for no reason, right?
Totally. I think there is a midway, and you made a very good point with the graduates. Like, I don't see how they can, and maybe we are old school, Tim, you tell me, but if I didn't go to, in my first few years, if I didn't go to an office and network with colleagues, the coffee machine, I don't know how, I would have learned, how I would have been inspired from my mentors. Yeah. But maybe it's very 2000 of me to think that way. And there are other ways to, you can network, that you can get mentors. And I think companies are adapting, but I wouldn't want to be graduate today. I think that I'm pretty nervous about building a career and knowing what I want to do in life.
I totally agree. I think when we talk about digital onboarding and being able to try to give the same experience, there's some things it's hard to replace that face-to-face, right? That in-person, and people go, oh, well, we can do a Zoom meeting and we can do this and it's face-to-face. But I'm like, it's not, because what's lost, like you said, was that kind of coffee, water cooler, in the hallway experiences, dropping by someone's office and having this discussion that you're like, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that, where you wouldn't have that in a planned meeting, And I do think like, especially most young people in the Gen Z they say, hey, I want to have this experience because I know the training, the network, everything that happens from that. I want to have that experience. I have, 3 Gen Z sons, 2 of which just started their careers. One's in New York City, and he has been remote the entire time of his career. Yeah. And so in like the end of August, he's supposed to finally get back into office, and he can't wait. He hasn't had this experience yet. He's like, I can't wait to get in the office, But at the same time, I know he'll be frustrated the first time he has some old dude like me coming to him and saying, hey, I need you here Friday morning at 8 a.m. And he's gonna be like, why? Like, I work out at 8, I'll be in at 10, I'll still get the job done. Don't worry about it. And he'll be like, this job sucks. This person doesn't understand what's going on. So, but yeah, totally agreed. Hey, well, I'll get you out of here on this question. What do you think organizations can do to improve the quickest right now? So we all know we're struggling to find talent, fill jobs. Give me an idea or two of what you see organizations not doing that they could be doing to improve the fastest.
I think it's having a very clear position on what remote work versus office work, what is going to be their long-term game, and be explicit about it, put it on their website and say, our culture is, you come 1 day a week, or you come 3 days every month, and this is how we collaborate, this is how we socialize between colleagues. Because that's the very first question candidates ask when we've got a program that reads the intent of the email. When we look at the themes, it's all about, can you tell me about if you are going to be remote now and forever, or what is the policy? I don't think companies have been very clear, and it's time to take a stance.
Yeah, and I think it's fine for a company to come out and say, you know what, you're going to be in the office 4 days a week or 5 days a week or whoever you are. Be very specific and very open and transparent about, this is our culture and this is why we think we're successful. You're going to find people that say, hey, you know what? I don't like to work at home by myself. It was lonely. Right. I didn't enjoy it. I want to be and work with my colleagues in person. Or you're going to find people that were like, okay, cool. Hey, I can have some flexibility and I can work at home a day or two a week or a month or whatever that might look like. I just think people, but like you said, like companies just aren't coming out and saying like, this is who we're going to be moving forward. And I know it's difficult. We had to kind of answer that for ourselves and and really kind of say, hey, you know what? We went full remote with our recruiting teams. Clearly, some people were successful, some people weren't.
Right.
So what does that look like moving forward? Are we going to stay full remote? Are we going to have this kind of hybrid? And, then just come out and say, hey, this is who we are. And we decided as a new recruiter coming in, you have to be in the office. We have to train you and teach you how to do that in the office. Once you get to a certain point and we go, you know what, you can run with scissors and you don't need our help anymore. Then we're going to give you that flexibility, and we're going to allow you to work days at home and days in the office. And, if you come to me and you say, hey, I want to work full remote, and you produce and you're great at what you do it. You go figure out how to be productive. I think what some companies struggle with is they want to say it has to be all or nothing. If I have a recruiter that I know produces really good in the office, but they suck when I send them home, then I'm going to go, hey, you know what? You have to work in the office. I'm like, no, I want to work at home. I don't care what you want. You can't produce. You're not good there. And if you don't understand that, then find some other company to pay you, because I'm not going to pay you to suck at home. I'm going to pay you to do the job that we're paying you to do. And I think so often companies were like, well, we offered it to Tim, so we have to offer it to Josh. Like, no, you don't. Because if Josh is producing and Tim's not, then offer it to Josh, but don't offer it to Tim. And I think that's one of the struggles we see, not just in recruiting. This is every job, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're talking about the personalization of also, the career and the way that's a big deal. I think we can't treat an entire, if you are an enterprise employer and you employ, 1,000 new graduates a year, your ability to kind of see what is the right path for each of them is important.
Cool. Josh, tell people how they can find you so they can connect with you and so they can keep hearing all these great science trends that you have.
Right. Yeah, the best way to get in touch with us and learn more about us is on visage.jobs. That's VISAGE.jobs. I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes. And request a demo. And we are all about helping you to scale up and down your sourcing capacities, help your recruiters be more strategic, and hire great people.
Yeah, I mean, again, I give it a ringing endorsement. I think it's one of those technologies that you can literally turn on in a day and get it going, and it's not one of these things that you have to implement over weeks or months. You can make it happen like right away. And again, there's more to this. So as you dig in and do the demo, they can talk to you about how they make sure that you have great sourcers, and how they actually kind of measure the success of their sourcers that work with the platform in a really cool way that I liked as well. If you have a sourcer that comes onto Visage that sucks, the system works them out pretty quickly, and you make we've found that the sourcers that we've worked with have already been really, really good and top notch. So make sure you check them out. You can also connect with Josh on LinkedIn. I will actually put that in the liner notes as well, so you can connect with him if you want specifically to learn more and have questions or talk with him. Thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, make sure you check it out. Yeah, visage.com. And we'll talk to you guys more on HR Famous. Talk to you guys soon.